O'Neill, 2 L's. I serve the SGC under a General Hammond.
We're explorers. You see, we're from another planet.
The unstable vortex of a forming wormhole. Kawoosh.
Indeed.
Hello interwebs and welcome back to another episode of the Kawoosh podcast. I am Arne, one of your hosts, and my other host is...
Evie, host. That sounds like...
Yes, we're podcast hosts.
Okay.
We're not hosts to Symbionts, that's only Teal'c. Well, not in this episode, because we are discussing Bloodlines today, the 11th episode of Season 1. And it opens up on Chulak. Some kind of snake priest grabs a bowl and Teal'c is stepping out of behind the curtain and a young Jaffa boy is lying on the table. They are opening his pouch and there are flashes of Teal'c on the table and his kid watching him, and then Teal'c jumps awake. It was a dream. He is lying on an operating table in the SGC and Dr. Fraser is reassuring him. They apparently were trying to get his Gua'old out of him, but they had to put it back because immediately almost all his organs started to fail. And right before he woke up, he was yelling out, "Ryak! Ryak!" And they ask what it means, but he says, "It means nothing."
Which is, I think, the first time Teal'c lies that we know of.
Quite possibly, yes.
Yeah.
And then we cut to credits. And when we come back, there is a big meeting going on. So what they were trying to do is they want to develop a drug out of the symbiont because it has healing abilities.
I thought they wanted to give Teal'c a sort of drug that would replace the symbiont, and then they can take it out and study it.
Yes, same, because they also wanted to use it for medication, and of course they need to give Teal'c a substitute for his symbiont, but that doesn't work because when they remove it, all his major organs started shutting down. So they were kind of hoping to get some kind of miracle drug out of the Gua'old larvae. Teal'c then says, but there are hundreds of Gua'old larvae on Chulak, and he can get them there. But the others all think it is way too dangerous. And then Teal'c says, "I will speak of it no further," and just shuts down completely.
And he walks off.
Yep. Jack goes after him and he finds him meditating in his room.
Which, can we just say, that is a very sparse room. Like, even Hammond's office has more things in it than Teal'c has in his room.
But at this point, it does suit his character.
True.
He doesn't have the bond yet with Earth that he will have later on.
True.
But yeah, it is very sparse, except for the fire hazard that are his candles.
I wonder how he gets them too. Like, where are they budgeted? Are they, like, where does he get them?
General Hammond, I have a special order. I need 95 unscented candles.
I can just imagine that he tries to order candles first and he's like, they're made from animal fat. Like, Teal'c, no, that's not what our candles are made of in these parts. I don't know.
And it is at this point when Jack confronts him that he tells him, well, Teal'c tells Jack that he is worried for the life of his son and his wife. Jack is taken aback because he didn't even know that Teal'c had left a family back there, and he gets kind of angry because Teal'c swore he had no ties back on Chulak.
But I love the acting in this because Jack is upset and he's angry, but he's not angry at Teal'c. He's angry at the situation. And he's like, oh, like, maybe they're not gonna trust you now. But it's immediately obvious that Jack, that trust is still unbroken.
But he feels a little bit hurt that he never told Jack. He probably thought, like, you could have told me this, and Teal'c had drawn a very hard line.
But still, they both played very, very well.
Yeah.
It could have easily defaulted into a, you lied to us, but it was played
They do bring it up, but then in the sense, like you said, like, how can we trust you? Because this is a pretty big thing you lied about.
I just really loved how it was played.
And then Teal'c says that he must go back to Chulak because his son will come of age and he will be implanted with his own larva at this point. And he doesn't want his son to become a slave to the Gua'old just like he was. And he also says there are other Jaffa that think that the Gua'olds are false god like his old master Teal'c. So this is actually some good world building again, because this means that it wasn't just Jack who just in a switch changed Teal'c's mind. Like Teal'c was already on that path.
Well, you could already see it in the first episode that
but this
he was.
underlines
Yeah.
where it came from.
Yeah,
Like,
true. Like it was brewing for a while, and he just saw an opening.
then they have to convince Hammond to let them go. So they try telling them, look, we're gonna go get the miracle drug, and there might be other Jaffa we can convince to rebel. And then he wants to know how many could that be, and they were like, we're sure of one. So Hammond asks Jack to join him in his office, and he wants to know about the real reason they want to go back. And he says, convince me, otherwise you are dismissed. And then Jack spills the beans about Teal'c's son, and that Teal'c really wants to go back to stop him. And then Jack says, like, we kinda owe him for leaving his family. At this point, an alarm starts going off.
Can we just pause a little bit, because Hammond says no at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, now you're playing tough parents. Like Daniel gets away with everything. But no, not the and I had this vibe of that it's because Teal'c is the good kid, isn't it? Like
Yeah,
it's
probably.
very much
Like, this
well, we
kid that never
expected-
failed me before
we
suddenly starts
expected better
acting
of
up.
him, and we're just gonna have tough love. You're like, that's
I'm not angry, I'm disappointed. But he does, and that's the Hammond I love. He leaves the door open. He's like, convince me why I should let you go.
Yeah.
Show me this is a good idea. And yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, the alarm goes off and they rush out to the gate control room, and Teal'c is there in full Jaffa armor, ready to return. He already fired up the gate, and Hammond doesn't want to let him go. He even orders people to stop him, because Teal'c knows too much, and if he falls in enemy hands, it's too dangerous. But in the end, Hammond agrees and sees his resolve, so he authorizes the rest of the team to go with him.
I have a few questions. First, where was Teal'c keeping that helmet? It was nowhere in the room. Like, because that...
We never saw him leave with it, actually, now that you mention it. Like, when they escaped from Chulak
that
the
is a good
first
point.
time,
He wasn't wearing
He doesn't
it.
have his helmet.
Has he been making it on his off time? Like, just like an art project.
But on the other hand, they also have the priest costumes. So
That makes no sense, because Teal'c says we have to hurry. It will happen within the day. And then they all go and change into these immaculate, accurate priest costumes. And they had zero prep.
You would actually think that maybe they just, at one point, ambushed some guys and took it? I don't know. But it was very convenient that they had these clothes.
But this is just nitpicking, of course. But it was just like, oh, that's fast.
So Hammond sees them all come in their costumes, and he wishes them Godspeed, and they step through the gate. And on the other side, we have armed guards and priests awaiting. Teal'c has to use a ruse to get past them, like he's basically overpowers the priest and
Bluffs his way through.
Yeah. He also tells them his helmet is broken, so he can't show his face because
Classic trick.
Helmet malfunction. Yeah.
Yes, they use it in a Knight's
Knight's Tale.
Knight's Tale too.
And then once they are in the forest, they quickly discard of their disguises and they go.
Which, I'm sorry, there's gotta be somebody in Stargate, the base, responsible for their disguises. And not only did they have to come up with this on the fly, but now they're not returning it. They gotta be so pissed. You know what? You know how Jedi always like throw off their cloaks and leave it off planet all the time? Like, you just know there's gotta be someone like, no,
one
you're not
tailor,
getting a new one. No,
one person
no, you are
tailor.
20 cloaks in the Reds. This corner, you're not getting any new
also-
ones.
So they're gonna hide their equipment, and they're not picking like a spot with a rock or something
it's
that's
in the
recognizable. It's just forests and some brush. Like, remember, it's near the very large tree.
I can't even find the car when we park. And oh gosh. But yeah.
Yeah. So they go off to Teal'c's old village and they arrive at the ruin of a house. And it is his former house, completely destroyed. No sign of his family. So Teal'c falls dramatically to his knees because on the side of the house is graffiti on the wall. Home of the Sholva, which is the Jaffa word for traitor. And we actually heard that one already.
I love how Teal'c, he's so dramatic. He's having a moment. He's so obviously so upset. And Daniel just saunters over and is like, I don't know this one. Like, read the room, Daniel. Honestly.
But we're joking now, but Christopher Judge just goes for it. He goes from the stoic soldier to just ripping through it and just letting loose.
He was amazing in this episode.
So then Carter tries to reassure him, like, we don't know if your wife and son were in here when it happened. And he angrily stumbles inside and starts throwing around debris.
I mean, what else would you do at this point?
Yeah. And then an older Jaffa appears and he points his weapon at Jack. And Teal'c quickly intervenes. And this is Teal'c, played by the legendary Tony Amendola. I love Teal'c.
Teal'c is awesome. And he was awesome right from the get-go. It's not like it was a minor character and then it just developed more and more. It's like they obviously had an idea for him.
Yeah.
I really
Because
love
he
it.
was the one who taught Teal'c that the Gua'old were not all what they seemed, and he trained him. And you also can feel the history. They have a really good vibe between them.
Yeah, absolutely. They have more vibe than Daniel and his wife. I mean...
So they greet as friends, and he reassures Teal'c that his wife and child are living in hiding. He was actually expecting Teal'c to return, and that's why he's here. The team is introduced to Teal'c as great warriors.
And Carter is all chuffed. She's like, aw, Teal'c. I love it.
But Teal'c doesn't really believe it, and he offends them. He tries to lure Jack into a fight, so he challenges him.
It's very obvious later on that that's what he's doing.
So they throw each other to the ground, and Jack eventually wins the scuffle. And Teal'c says it wouldn't have been so easy if I wasn't over 100 years old. At which point Jack kind of gets flustered.
He's like, oh no, I'm sorry. Don't fall for it. You.
So he wants to help him up and gets thrown to the ground himself. At which point Teal'c smugly says 133.
It's really good character interaction all around.
So apparently Teal'c's wife and child live as outcasts, and they will have to be careful to go there when they want to find him. So Jack sends Daniel and Sam back to the gate to wait, and then the rest of them will go after the wife and child. And there is this brilliant dialogue between the three of them, between Teal'c, Teal'c, and Jack. They're trying to formulate a plan, and Jack goes we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And Teal'c deadpans, we can't, the bridge is guarded. And Teal'c just deadpans they just go ahead, and Jack is guys, it's a figure of speech.
Yeah.
But it's clear he has no control over the situation. Teal'c just takes over and they walk away.
Because they walk, and then Jack has to jog to keep up, and then the next he's like,
Yeah, he
hey,
goes
maybe
"Can we
Teal'c needs a break. It's this 40-year-old man trying to keep up with a 133-year-old.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I will rest later. And Jack's like, oh god.
Yeah, and then but they have a really good dialogue when they're walking, and Teal'c is obviously interested in the life on Earth. So Jack tells him about the life in the SGC, and he mentions Hammond because he's the leader of the SGC, and he says he's from Texas, which will be something that Teal'c will later on, when he's introduced to Hammond, he will go, Hammond of Texas. So seed is planted. Then on the way back to the gate, Sam and Daniel come across a group of Jaffa with some priests, and they are carrying some kind of ceremonial jar. They are also accompanied accompanied by some scantily dressed priestesses.
It wasn't too bad though. We've seen more scantilier dress. That's not a
Yeah.
word. Less clothed.
Yeah. But yeah, I needed to mention it. It was 90s. Women obviously wore less fabric on their body for some reason. A bell sounds and Carter decides to go after the group. And you mentioned she is disobeying orders.
That's not usually her style. So I wonder, did she radio it in and just we don't see it? Or did she go like, we have time? I don't know. It felt slightly out of character, but it was also the mission.
I think that was it. I
So-
think she kind of had an inkling on what was happening and what was maybe inside.
Yeah.
So she made a call to go after it. Then Braytek and Teal'c and Jack arrive at a tent village, and they're scaring the people living there because two of them are wearing Jaffa armor. And there is one tent away from the rest, so Teal'c rushes down towards it. And he enters, and there's a priest already going through the ritual, and they start a fight. A third person intervenes in the scuffle, and it turns out that it is his wife,
Dreyok.
Ok?
Ok.
Okay, Dreyok. And in the scuffle of the fight, they broke the jar with the Gua'old. It is dead on the ground, cut open by one of the shards of the bowl, and the priest apparently
Stabbed himself.
Yeah,
He
fell
ran
on his-
into his knife.
he fell on his dagger or something.
He ran into his knife. I saw it. Like,
Yeah, and Teal'c's wife is mad. She had to beg the priest to do the ritual, and he says he wants his son to be free. And she answers that he has condemned his son to die.
I love how he fell in love with this woman who is equally dramatic as he is. Like, I really wondered what their courtship must have been like, because they are on a level with each other. They're like their initial anger at each other and their miscommunication, but you can immediately sense that these are two equals in a relationship.
But it's completely reasonable
Yeah.
because from her point of view,
Yeah.
he just left them.
Yeah, and she's trying to fix things
Yeah,
with
she's
the little
trying to
whatever
survive.
pieces she has left. But I could immediately believe that this relationship was established and that they were reacting the way they were
Mm-hmm.
without them they were angry at each other, but they weren't disrespectful towards each other.
Mm-hmm.
I just really loved, like, she went for it. She wasn't a throwaway character.
And she was betrayed, so it's
Mm-hmm.
completely natural because she tells him, like, we had a house, a villa, we had standing, and you just betrayed all of that and left. So yeah, she did what she had to do because his son is sick. So she's mad at him for abandoning them. She's raising him in poverty, and he wants to talk to his son, who is unconscious at this point, but she tells him that she told their son that Teal'c was dead. So they take the boy with them and leave. Meanwhile,
They don't really leave. They go to the camp right next door.
well, they go outside of the
Yeah, okay,
tent.
yeah.
So, yeah, when I was writing this, they left.
And then it turned out they
and-
just sat
yeah,
down
and-
2 meters.
And when
yeah,
we come back to them, it's like right outside. But
Okay.
meanwhile, Sam and Daniel follow the priest to some sort of large church-like building on a hill.
But we're not going there.
No. And then they go to the small altar at the base of the hill. And they move something from their jar into a large gold-like basin.
It's basically daycare.
Yeah.
Because there's
Gua'old daycare.
Gua'old daycare, which makes me wonder, like, do they deposit them there and then they go to work in the castle? Or
Exactly.
And
Why
what
do
is
they
it?
leave if they have to tend
Yeah,
to these things?
it was just...
It's a bit convoluted, but they need it.
I mean, they did say there's no guards, but yeah, then on this planet, who would need to steal one?
That
which
is
is
actually
kind of a
true.
good
Yeah,
point.
kinda true.
And you do want that out in the open, in the face of the population, I guess, but it still was a little bit funny.
Yeah, it was a bit too easy like this.
Like, if like a GM would give that to me in a roleplay scenario,
trap.
I would be like, no, what's the catch? This is too easy. And then we would waste like half an hour debating this, and you'd be like, just take the damn thing and go.
Yeah, Ryek awakens and he is of course confused to see his father alive and he is coughing. Dreyok asks if he understands now, so yeah, this is at Teal'c.
Because basically the kid is dying.
Yeah, and he needs the healing power of the Gua'old.
Because they don't have vaccines on that planet because they have Gua'old. But we don't have Gua'old, so that's why you need to get vaccinated. Because scarlet fever is not a joke. Don't laugh.
No.
It's killing him.
Yeah, it is true. Jack actually is the one who recognizes it as scarlet fever, and he says there are vaccines for it, there is medicine, but of course he doesn't have it on him. And he has something that will help for the fever, but it will not be strong enough to really help. Sam and Daniel go to the little altar and they find a big tank full of Gua'old larvae, just out in the open, unguarded.
Sorry, GM related again. I can just see someone writing this and going like, I'm not going to add a door. Last time I gave these idiots a door, it took them an hour to get through the door. So I'm just going to put it out in the open now. And now now they don't trust it. You know what? Never mind. Please carry on.
Carter takes out a thermos.
I love the larva thermos.
Yeah,
Like
it does have the biohazard sign on it, but
somebody had to design this.
Yeah, and she gets ready to grab one, which she does, and she quickly fills it with water, and they leave. But at that point, Daniel turns around and cocks his gun, which makes Carter stop for a moment, and she goes like, "Don't do it." But he does. He shoots the tank, killing all the Gua'old larvae.
I have notes. While I understand where he's coming from, and while it's a bad thing to do, I still understand the character, why he does it, because Daniel is not emotionally stable and should not even be out on missions at this point with a gun. But even if they are at war with the Gua'old, this is a war crime. Because he's basically saying, these kids will grow up to become evil. That is not okay.
Yeah.
That is that's how genocide happens. Like, that is not a good...
And they do specify that it is not fully grown.
They specify later on that these are basically not yet fully grown Gua'old. So he basically went and killed kids of an enemy population to ensure that they wouldn't grow up and become... And that is very problematic. And I can still understand it within his character, but I feel it's very odd that there's no...
Yeah, Carter gives him a little pushback in the moment.
A little pushback, but
that's like the only thing.
Like, somewhere, like, I would have liked Carter to go like, hey,
Daniel,
like,
you did a genocide.
or like, hey, Daniel is being very, like, he's slipping, or this is not okay. Like people get court-martialed for a lot less, and with good reason.
This is kind of 90s writing in that sense, like they touch upon it but they don't really go into it.
And later on we learn that all Gua'old are evil. There is no nuance because they are all born with...
that's not true, because we will come across the Tok'ra.
True, but we're not there yet. That's like, where is that? It's a way down the line though.
I'm not sure.
But anyway, like for a while though, it's very much like all the Gua'old are born with all the knowledge of the Gua'old and this and that, and so it's very heavily implied like there is no nuance in the bad guys at this point in time.
Because that's easier to write as well.
I know, but still...
That's what I mean with the 90s writing, like they do tend to take some shortcuts, touch upon things, but...
To me, this was a very iffy shortcut. Like,
True.
I can still understand him doing it, but I would have expected either pushback or like a follow-up.
Yeah.
Like...
And at this point, we don't get that.
Yeah.
The others are moving through the forest because they are going back to the gate, and Ryek is burning up with a fever and even stops breathing at a point. So Jack urges them on to get to the gate, but Teal'c says that it's too late. And he starts undoing his armor. He says there is no other way. So he's ready to take his symbiont out. And Braytek says this is a father's right.
Which I felt was very, very powerful.
It immediately also communicates that taking out your symbiont on your own is actually not done. So this is like, there's few exceptions, this is being one of them.
Yeah.
Like
it's
saving
probably,
the next generation is one of those few times. Or when you're supposed to give them to the Gua'old hosts. But so Teal'c apologizes to his son for for doing it.
And how amazing is this actor? Like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I got chills. Like, this is exactly what he came to prevent, and now he has to do it to save his son.
Yeah, he whispers to forgive him, and it takes out the larva from his pouch, which still is such a good effect. And then Sam and Daniel apparently did come across some guards somewhere because they are moving through the forest and people start shooting at them.
Which I don't understand why that was in there.
Yeah, because we didn't see the guards before, so it kind of came out of nowhere, and then Carter just throws a grenade to take them out, and that was it. So
Yeah.
like we needed some action in there, so bam, done.
Yeah, I have no idea why that was in there. But anyway.
Yeah, probably also because they needed something to get away, because when we come back, then the procedure on the Ryak is working well and he is healing. On the other hand, Teal'c is getting worse. So he wants Braytag to hear his will. And at this point, Sam and Daniel arrive and with their stolen Gua'old, and they go like, hey, we have a solution.
That was fun. That was blah, 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 blah. I like that one. That was like, yeah, we have a problem. We got one. Like,
Yeah, but Teal'c and Braytag are appalled by this because it is sacrilege to steal from the temple. And at this point, they also mention that he's actually way too young to be implanted, but they will try nonetheless. And then there are some other guards that are following, and they find the dead ones. And one of them is carrying a big horn because he knew he was going to have to blow it. So he starts signaling an alarm.
hey, and he went for it. That extra had one job, and by golly did he do it.
Yeah. And at the gate, the other Jaffa hear the horn and they move into the forest.
So that's why they needed to kill some guard. Oh, okay, cool.
It all kind of works. The only thing that bugs me a little bit is that we don't see them arriving. Maybe it's a cutscene, I don't know. But like, we're in the forest and suddenly Daniel and Carter are being chased. So I needed just like one or two shots that showed where they came from.
It felt to me like Daniel was just walking and talking and eating, and I thought that they were just being careless at that point. That they weren't
but
actually
maybe
being sneaky.
one establishing shot to show them where the Jaffa came from. I don't know.
Anyway,
They are moving to the gate, and when the team is nearing, Ryak comes too, and he seems happy to have the Gua'old in him.
oh, and that was so amazing because this boy has been looking forward. And I can totally understand that you don't want to start. It's so dangerous. Like, what do you tell your kids about the current oppression? Because if he starts talking to other kids, then he can get in danger so fast. So you can just you just know that they've been keeping him in the dark. And it hurts Teal'c so bad.
But for
that
a
moment
kid,
of
this is just a rite of passage. He wants to belong. For him, this
And-
is
and
his normal.
he gets this glorious look on his face, like a gold, and you can just see the hurt on Teal'c's face. And I just wanted to squish his face. Poor
He also
guy.
asks his father to stay, but Teal'c says he can't. But he will return to set his people free from the false gods. And he tells his wife, frame me for the death of the priest and say that I was trying to steal my son. And he says he is proud of his wife for raising their son alone. So they say their goodbyes and they leave them in the forest. And this I found was really, really cool. Teal'c stays for a moment just to steal one last look at his family without saying a word.
I know. This is a really good episode.
Yeah. And then they arrive at their disguises. So they found them like it was the big bush with the...
Maybe there was a tracker in it? I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. It's just funny. And Braytag says they will have to do as he says.
So Jack starts making up a plan. He's like, here's a plan. And Braytag goes, you will do as I say. Okay.
And you won't need those, so they don't need the priest costumes.
Again, somebody in the costume department in Stargate is going to be like, so an alien told you to leave them and you listened.
Exactly.
I'm making a note of this.
And at the gate, there's only one guard left and two priests as they approach. Braytag says that they are his prisoners, but the other ones won't let him pass until the palace guard arrives. And then Braytag, 133 years old, makes short work of all of them.
And the the team goes like, huh, and Teal'c goes like, he got this. No.
Jack is standing there, gobsmacked, his mouth open, like, okay. And of course they ask, like, how are you gonna talk your way out of this? You just fought all these guards. But he says that he will cross that bridge when he comes to it. And then Daniel activates the gate while Teal'c says his goodbye to Braytek, who will raise his son as a new warrior. And Teal'c is the last to leave as he looks back to his planet and his former master. And then we cut to credits.
Yeah.
This one is so good.
It is so good. I think this is my favorite one so far. Just the acting alone and the backstory and the lore and
they're
all
starting
of it.
to build out the
Yeah.
Jaffa stories.
Yes.
Like, it's not just a bunch of guards working for the gods. No, these are people with lives and families and traditions. So yeah, this works. And then yeah, casting Tony Amendola as Braytek, like, he is phenomenal. I don't care what I see him in. I just love him. He always goes all in. He brings all the good energy.
133%.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't have that much more to say. It's just such a good episode.
It really is a very good episode. We are at episode 11, which is sort of halfway.
Sort of halfway, yeah.
They are, like, track record-wise, they're not bringing back a whole lot. So I do wonder, like, I didn't remember a whole lot of season 1 because, you know, I'm old and we've seen it a very long time ago. And is home base going to be eventually like, this isn't working? Are we going to scrap this program because you keep going out there? This is costing us a lot of money. And
Yes.
we're not bringing back a whole lot because,
Yeah.
again, they didn't succeed in what they were going to do.
I'm not sure when. It might be this season, but I'm blanking on the name of the actor right now, but he was the bad guy in the first RoboCop. He's also a bad guy here. He plays a politician, and he's one of the counter forces that wants to close down. At first he wants to close it down, but then they start bringing technology back, and he's the one who's starting this shadow organization to get Gua'old tech or alien tech in general from other planets. So this does become a point. I'm not sure when he gets introduced, though. It could be the end of this season. It could be a later season. But they do go into that.
Because as far as their initial missions, they're not getting very far. They are getting a lot of footholds down, though. But, you know.
Well, at the end of this season, and maybe spoilers for people who haven't watched it before, but it is a show from '97, so you have seen it probably. But at the end of the season, the Gua'old do arrive at Earth in their ships, which is something that they set up in one of the first episodes, that they told them, yes, they can get here. It will take them a few months, but they can get here. So the cliffhanger of this season is that the forces arrive, which is also a signal to all the opposition, like, we need this program because they're the only ones who can make sure that this doesn't happen again, or that we can defend against those kind of forces. So,
But we're not there yet.
we're not there yet. We're only halfway through the first season. But on the whole, like you said, if you look back to we're at episode 11 now, it's actually quite solid. Like, there were a few lesser episodes in there, but on the whole, they're all pretty good so far.
I'm still not convinced about the whole, hey, let me sell, you know,
Yeah.
some people to other people.
I know.
You know what I mean? But on the whole, it has been a very solid season. What I wonder is we haven't seen the entire season yet, but I do wonder, they're still very much still finding their footing, even though it's been pretty solid. Had it been released today, would they have gotten a second season? Because nowadays you have to prove yourself
But they would
right out of the gate.
They would have made a different show.
They would have made less episodes too.
Yeah, that's a
And
little
then
bit
we
of the
wouldn't
problem.
even have had this one, I think.
No, the problem nowadays is they will make, or probably will make, one big story, one overarching story in about 8 episodes, and you don't have time to go into these things. So
Which
I'm not
is
sure.
which is another reason why they keep returning to the status quo. Like they go out, they try to get something, but they can't, and it's kind of a wave, and you can just pick up whenever you want to. Still, at this point,
The difference is, back when they made this, they had 2 season orders
okay.
from the get-go. So they knew they were going to do 2 seasons at least, so they knew they could spread some things out, they could test some things. Also, their seasons were, as we mentioned, 21 episodes long. So you have the freedom to have a dud, and next week it will be better. You can also try things. If it doesn't work, next week we'll have a more normal show. So
And back
you-
then, ratings actually told you stuff.
they never were a complete picture,
No,
but,
no.
but they were more reliable because there
Yeah.
was actually no other way to look at things.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, streamers, they keep the numbers pretty much to themselves, so you don't really have an idea how successful something is.
Yeah, and also there is no real way to measure like when people are watching it. Like people say, "Oh, we can watch it later," and then they'll watch it a month later, and it doesn't even get counted. But this was on at a certain time, and that's when things got, measured.
It's what we call, or what we used to call, appointment TV. You
are
had
so old.
You had to be there because otherwise you couldn't. On Monday morning at the water cooler, you had nothing to say.
You
because
say water cooler. We were still in school.
I
There were no water coolers. But like there were days like if you arrived in school, like not me, I didn't have cool friends back then that watched the same shows. They were all watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Not that that's not a cool show, but I wasn't watching that show at the time. So, but like you would always have this buzz, like, did you see the last? And you had to go like la 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 if you missed it.
But as large a fan base as Stargate has, it wasn't, or at least over here, it wasn't huge because I didn't have any friends that watched it.
That
but
sounded very sad until you finished the sentence.
We do have one fan club over here in Belgium. They're at Facts every year, or were, because
I haven't seen them
you
last.
mentioned that they weren't there last
Yeah, but
time.
I also didn't see the Star Wars fan club.
Maybe they were in a different room this
To be
time.
fair, I was in the fan village, but I didn't really run around. Like this was the first time that I went to let the offspring run around, and I just sat somewhere, and it was a very weird feeling because I remember us going to Facts when we were teenagers and stealing posters of. I can't say that on air.
Did you steal posters?
We stole a Serenity poster. Remember?
I don't.
It was on. They had like 20 of them, and we wanted one, and they said no. So we turned around until they walked away, and then we took it off the wall, and we were. I had that up in my in my door.
wife is a
You
criminal.
helped me take it down because you're like
I deny
you
everything.
we can't just tear it off; it'll tear. You have to make sure like you were. And it was this poster, and it had Summer Glau like in this very cool pose like this, with the
Yeah.
no, but
The bluish one.
yeah, and it was the second day they were gonna toss him anyway. I had to.
You had your defense prepared. I can hear it.
You wanted it to. You wanted that poster too. Well, first of all,
I do remember.
this happened very many
yeah.
years ago. I don't think.
I don't remember the stealing, but I do remember us talking to a lot of the actors there and getting free autographs out of it.
That's because we talked to people. That was before you had very, very long lineups too.
They were also not A-listers. They were.
Excuse me, they were awesome.
Back in the day, the people doing the conventions were like the secondary characters or the cameos. We had some actors that played Ewoks. We had I'm blanking on her name, but the woman who played Ula in Return of the Jedi. We did have David Prowse at one time.
We also had young Boba Fett. No, not young
Daniel
Jango
Daniel
Fett.
Logan. No, Boba Fett. He is Boba Fett.
Right, cool, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, and he was hitting on you.
No, he was hitting on everything. It
Yeah.
wasn't just me. He was very happy to be there. He was very friendly too.
Yeah, it was young too.
We
It was
had a
like-
point. My point was, I remember us going to Facts as teenagers, and then I was just sitting there last time as a parent with the teenager running around with their friend, and I was like, this is a very weird feeling, and I'm just gonna sit in the booth being totally overwhelmed because I can't do crowds anymore. I was sitting there with my headphones on going like, What happened? I'm old. That was my point.
Okay, I think it's time to wrap this up
I'm
because it's
sorry.
our bedtime. No, that's not true. But no, I think we have our conclusion. This is one of the best episodes so far. I love the way they go into Teal'c's backstory. Okay,
Yeah.
let's wrap it up, and we'll see the other people. Our listeners and viewers will see us next week. Where can people find you on the interweb?
On the interwebs, I am Evie Belknap on Blue Sky and on TikTok and on Instagram.
And I am Arne Köstermans on Instagram and Iradonion on YouTube and Blue Sky. And also on TikTok, but I never post there.
Yeah, you don't even open it anymore. It scares you.
Sometimes, yeah, it's so busy. I'm old too, you know. But anyway, thank you for watching, and we will see you next week.